When my daughter-in-law told me I wasn't needed anymore, I smiled instead of crying. It wasn't because I wasn't hurt, but after 70 years of life, you learn that tears don't always change hearts. That day, the house felt unusually quiet. The laughter that used to echo through the rooms had faded months ago. My son, Amir, had gone to work early. As always, my daughter-in-law Nadia was in the kitchen. Her movements sharp and quick, the way people move when they're annoyed but trying to hide it. I stood by the window, folding the small clothes of my granddaughter, little Hira. The morning light touched the curtains gently, and for a moment, I thought of the times when this house was filled with warmth when I first moved in after my husband passed away. Back then, Amir had insisted, "Ami, this is your home too. You'll never be alone," he'd said with a smile that reminded me of his childhood. I believed him. For years, I helped raise Hira. I cooked. I told her stories. I prayed for her when she was sick. I knew the rhythm of this home better than my own heartbeat. But lately, things had changed, slowly, quietly, like seasons turning without anyone noticing. Nadia started doing everything herself. She said she wanted the house to run her way. She began waking up early to cook before I came to the kitchen. She folded the laundry before I could touch it. At first, I thought she was being kind, trying to let me rest. But soon I realized she was taking back the space that once felt like mine. I tried not to feel unwanted. I told myself, maybe this is how it's supposed to be. Children grow, lives change. Still, each small change chipped away at me. There was one morning I remember it clearly, when I set the breakfast table as usual. I placed the cups where everyone liked them, cut the bread just right. When Nadia came out, she looked at the table and said softly, "Oh, I already made breakfast. You didn't have to." Her tone wasn't cruel, it was polite, but distant, like talking to a guest who had overstayed their welcome. I sat down quietly, pretending to sip my tea, but inside, something felt different. It wasn't just sadness, it was the feeling of being invisible in the house you once held together. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how fast life changes. One day you're the one everyone calls first. The next, they forget to tell you what's for dinner. I thought of my own mother, how she must have felt when I got married and drifted away into my own world. Maybe this is the circle of life. Maybe this is what every mother eventually learns. Still, I couldn't shake one thought. If love is supposed to grow with time, why does it sometimes fade the moment we become old? The next morning, I woke up early. I prayed quietly before dawn, and as the sun rose, I decided I wouldn't blame anyone. I would just watch how love changes shape. Watch what happens when silence becomes your only companion. That's how it all began. Before things changed, this house was full of warmth. I still remember the day Amir and Nadia brought me here. It was raining lightly, and I held my old suitcase close, afraid it might burst open from all the clothes I had stuffed inside. Amir laughed and said, "Ami, it's just a few steps. You don't have to carry the whole world with you." He opened the door, and I saw the home he had built, small, cozy, full of promise. The smell of fresh paint still lingered, and Nadia had arranged new curtains that swayed gently in the breeze. She was shy then, always smiling politely, calling me Ami G with such sweetness that I couldn't help but love her. Those first few months after my husband passed away were hard. I had spent 40 years with that man, 40 years of shared mornings, shared prayers, and shared silence. When he was gone, the silence became too heavy. So when Amir asked me to move in, I felt as though life was giving me another purpose. Every morning, I would wake up before everyone else. I would make parathas the way Amir liked them, crisp, not too oily. Nadia would join me in the kitchen, asking me small questions about recipes or how to fold dough the right way. We'd laugh over little mistakes. Sometimes she'd tell me about her childhood, about how she missed her mother who lived in another city. Those conversations built a quiet bond between us. Then, Hira was born, and the house turned into a melody. Her tiny cries filled every corner, and I loved every sound. I'd sing her old lullabies my mother once sang to me. When she grew older, she'd follow me around the house, calling me Dottie, with her little feet pattering behind me. In those moments, I felt needed. I felt alive again. Every evening, Amir would come home tired, but smiling. We would all sit together for dinner, talking, laughing, sometimes teasing each other. There were no big words of love, but there was a peace in knowing we were together. I would often think, maybe this is what growing old should feel like, to watch your children build their lives, and to quietly be part of it. But life, as I've learned, doesn't stay still for long. that as Hira started school, Nadia became busier. She wanted to manage everything perfectly, from cooking to homework. I admired her energy, but slowly found myself stepping aside. At first, it was small things. She'd say, "Auntie G, you rest. I'll handle dinner tonight." Or, "I already picked up Hira from school." She meant well, I believed that. But soon, those small moments became my everyday. I began to notice that my hands had nothing left to do. The kitchen no longer smelled like my cooking. Hira started spending more time in her room than in my lap. The days grew quieter, and I tried to convince myself that this was normal, that this was how families grow. Still, some nights I would sit by the window, watching the lights flicker across the street, remembering the laughter that once filled these walls. I would whisper to myself, "At least they're happy." I didn't know then that happiness can sometimes leave shadows behind, shadows that follow you even in the brightest house. It's strange how distance doesn't always begin with words. Sometimes it starts with silence, the kind that settles between people who once knew each other's thoughts without speaking. That silence crept into our home slowly. At first, it was just small things. Nadia started making the grocery list without asking me what we needed. The tea she brewed tasted different lighter, without the cardamom I always added. Amir stopped calling me from work to ask what I was cooking. I told myself it was normal. People get busy, children grow, the house moves on, even when your heart wants to stay still. But the silence kept growing. One morning, I came into the kitchen, and Nadia was already there, her hair tied neatly, humming a tune. On the counter, there was a new set of pans, shiny, modern ones I'd never seen before. She turned and smiled politely. "Oh, Auntie G, I got these because the old ones were a little used." That word stung more than it should have. I had cooked thousands of meals in those old pans for Amir, for her, for Hira. They had stories of burnt bread, laughter, and family dinners. But now, they were just used. I stepped back quietly, not wanting to make her uncomfortable. But inside, something sank a little deeper. Later that week, I overheard a conversation I wasn't meant to hear. Amir and Nadia were in their room. The door was half closed, and their voices were low but clear. Nadia said, "She's not comfortable here anymore. She needs more care, maybe her own space." Amir sighed. "She's my mother. She's fine here." "But Amir," Nadia said gently, "we barely have time for ourselves. Hurrah's growing up. Your mother deserves peace, not this chaos." Peace. Another word that didn't sound like what it meant. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly above me. I wasn't angry, just heavy, like a guest who has stayed too long at someone else's house. The next morning, I tried harder to be useful again. I ironed Amir's shirts before he woke up, cooked his favorite meal, even helped Hira with her school project. But every time Nadia would stop me with a soft smile. "Auntie G, please rest. You've done enough." That phrase followed me everywhere. You've done enough. Enough for what? For love, for family, for belonging. One afternoon, Hira came home with a drawing from school. It was a picture of her family, her parents, her teacher, even the family cat. I wasn't in it. She showed it proudly, and I smiled, though my heart trembled a little. "That's beautiful, Beta," I said softly. She looked up at me and said, "Dottie, you're not in school, so I didn't draw you." It wasn't her fault. She's just a child. But that tiny picture told me what words never had. I was slowly fading from their story. In the evenings, I started spending more time in my room. I'd listen to the sounds of the house, Nadia's laughter, Hurrah's chatter, Amir's voice in the distance. It was still my family, but I had become an echo in the background. And one evening, as I sat by the window watching the street lights blink on, a thought quietly settled in my mind. Maybe love doesn't always leave with anger. Sometimes, it just forgets to look back. It was a Sunday, the kind of morning that used to be full of life. Hira's laughter, the smell of breakfast, the clatter of dishes. But that day, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I woke up early, as always, and went to the kitchen to prepare tea. The kettle was already boiling, and 2 cups were set out on the table. Only 2, not 3. I paused, watching the steam rise. For a moment, I thought maybe they were planning to surprise me with breakfast. But then I heard their voices coming from the living room. Nadia's tone was calm, careful. Amir's voice was lower, uncertain. I didn't mean to listen, but my feet wouldn't move. "Amir," Nadia said softly. "I spoke to the manager at the senior home again. They have a nice place available. She have company there, people her age." Amir sighed. I don't know if that's the right thing. She's always been with us. I know, Nadia replied. But you've seen her. She's lonely here. Maybe she'll be happier somewhere peaceful. Happier, peaceful. Words people use when they're trying to make leaving sound gentle. I walked back to my room before they could see me. My hands trembled as I folded my shawl, pretending I hadn't heard anything. My heart felt both numb and heavy, like something inside me had quietly broken without making a sound. Later that morning, Amir knocked on my door. He came in with that same careful look children have when they're about to tell their mother something she won't like. Ami, he began softly. Nadia and I were thinking, maybe you should stay somewhere where you'll have friends, people your age. You deserve comfort. I smiled, a small, tired smile. Are you saying I don't have comfort here, Beth? He hesitated, then said, it's not that. It's just, we thought it might be better for you. You'll have nurses, activities, other ladies to talk to. I looked at him, my son, the boy I had carried in my arms through fevers and sleepless nights, and now he couldn't meet my eyes. Do you think I'll be happy away from you? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. He just placed his hand on mine and said, please, Ami, it's for your own good. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him that love doesn't expire, that mothers don't need activities, they just need to belong. But I didn't. I simply nodded. When Nadia came in, she looked relieved. She said, it's a lovely place, Ami G. You'll like it there. The people are kind. I smiled again, because that's what mothers do. We smile when our hearts are breaking, so our children don't feel guilty. That evening, I started packing my things, my old shawl, my prayer beads, a few photographs. Amir offered to help, but I said no. I wanted to fold my life quietly, piece by piece. As I closed the suitcase, I looked around the room that once held my laughter, my stories, my dreams, and I whispered to myself, so this is what it feels like to outgrow your own home. The next morning, I left. The house looked the same, but it no longer felt like mine. And when I stepped out the door, I didn't cry. I just told myself, if this is what love looks like when it grows old, then maybe love was never meant to stay forever. The first night away from home was the hardest. The room was clean, bright, and quiet. Too quiet. The bed smelled of fresh sheets, not of home. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the hallway lights. Somewhere down the corridor, a woman was softly humming an old tune. It reminded me of how I used to sing to Hira when she couldn't sleep. For the first time in many years, I felt truly alone. No footsteps outside my door. No sound of dishes clattering. No laughter from the living room. Just me, and the soft ticking of a clock that seemed to count my memories instead of minutes. The next morning, one of the staff members, a kind young woman named Samina, brought me breakfast. Good morning, Auntie, she said with a warm smile. You'll get used to the place soon. Everyone here has their own story. I nodded politely. I suppose I'm just learning mine. Over the next few days, I began to notice the other residents. Some laughed easily. Others sat quietly by the window, their eyes far away. We all had the same look, a mix of peace and longing. We were not unhappy. We were just remembering. There was one lady, Mahar, who often sat beside me during lunch. She had 2 sons who visited once a month. She'd always say, they're busy, but they love me. And I'd smile gently, thinking how familiar that sounded. In the afternoons, I would sit near the garden. The air there felt lighter. Birds came and went freely. No walls could stop them. Sometimes I'd close my eyes and imagine that one of them carried my prayers back home. Days turned into weeks. Amir called often at first. Ami, how are you? Are they taking care of you? I'd tell him yes, every time. I didn't want him to hear the emptiness behind my words. Then the calls grew shorter, then fewer. I learned not to wait for the phone to ring. But one evening, it did. It was Nadia. Ami G, she said softly. Hira misses you. She keeps asking when she can visit. That was the first time I felt something soften in my heart again. I said, tell her Dottie misses her more. A week later, they came. Hira ran into my arms, her tiny hands clutching the hem of my shawl. Dottie, I drew you in my new picture, she said proudly. She showed me a drawing of our family, and this time, I was there, in the middle, holding her hand. That little drawing healed something I didn't know could still heal. When Amir hugged me before leaving, I whispered, don't worry, Beta, I'm fine here. Just remember to live kindly. That's all a mother ever wants. As they walked away, I watched them with calm eyes. There was no anger left in me, just a quiet acceptance that love changes form, but it doesn't disappear. It simply learns new ways to exist. That night, I prayed not for them to feel guilty, but for them to understand. Sometimes, that's the closest thing to forgiveness. And as I drifted to sleep, I thought maybe this place isn't a punishment. Maybe it's just another chapter, one I wasn't expecting, but one I can still fill with grace. It has been 6 months since I left my son's house. Sometimes, when the sun sets behind the garden wall, the light hits my window in the same way it used to at home. For a brief moment, I can almost imagine I'm still there. The smell of lentils on the stove, the sound of Hira's laughter echoing down the hall. Then, the moment passes, and I'm back here, wrapped in my shawl, watching the evening drift by quietly. I've grown used to the rhythm of this place. Mornings begin with prayer, followed by tea and small talk. Some of the women here tell stories from their youth, stories of love, struggle, and loss. We listen, not because the stories are new, but because each one reminds us we are not alone. Sometimes, the staff plays old songs on the radio. Those melodies carry memories, weddings, festivals, laughter. I close my eyes and smile, letting them take me back to a time when life was fuller, faster, and louder. But now, I've learned to find comfort in stillness. Every weekend, Amir calls. He always asks, "Amy, are you okay?" And I always answer, "Yes, Beta, I am okay." At first, those words felt heavy, like I was pretending. But over time, they became true. I really am okay, not because everything is perfect, but because I've stopped waiting for things to be the way they once were. Last week, they came to visit again, Amir, Nadia, and little Hira. They brought sweets and flowers. Hira ran straight to me, full of energy. She told me about her school, her new friends, and how she won a drawing competition. She said, "Dottie, I drew our family again. This time, I made the sun behind you, because you always make things warm." Her words filled my eyes with quiet tears. Children have a way of saying the truth without knowing how deep it runs. After they left, I sat in the garden for a long time. The air was soft, and the flowers were beginning to close for the night. I thought about my life, the years I spent as a wife, a mother, a grandmother. I thought about all the meals cooked, the prayers whispered, the sleepless nights, and gentle mornings. Every stage had its own kind of love, its own kind of loss. And I realized something. Love doesn't end when people grow distant. It just changes its place in your heart. It becomes quieter, humbler, something you carry without needing it to be seen. If I've learned anything, it's that we don't stop being needed when we grow old. We simply become needed in different ways, as memory, as guidance, as prayer. Now, when I close my eyes at night, I no longer feel like someone who was left behind. I feel like someone who lived fully, gave freely, and learned when to let go. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is stepping back, not because we are unwanted, but because we trust that what we've planted will continue to grow, even when we're not there to see it. So yes, the day my own children told me I wasn't needed anymore, it broke something in me. But it also opened a quieter truth, that love, once given sincerely, never disappears. It simply finds new ways to live on. Sometimes I sit by the window at night and think about the word home. For most of my life, I believed home was a place, a house filled with laughter, the smell of food, and the voices of the people you love. But now, I've learned something deeper. Home isn't always a place you live in. Sometimes, it's a feeling you carry, a quiet warmth inside you, built from all the moments when you gave love freely and asked for nothing in return. There are nights when I still miss my old house. I miss hearing Amir call out, "Amy, where's my shirt?" I miss Nadia's laughter in the kitchen, and the way Hira would run into my arms after school. Those memories come like gentle waves. They don't hurt anymore. They just remind me that I was part of something beautiful once, and that's enough. The women here, my new friends, often ask, "Do you ever wish you could go back?" I smile and say, "No, I've already lived that chapter. Now, I'm reading the next one." Because life, no matter how long it lasts, keeps turning its pages, and every page, even the painful ones, belongs to our story. Sometimes, Amir brings me photos of Hira's school events. He says, "Amy, she talks about you all the time." And when I look at those pictures, I feel proud, not sad, because even if I'm not there every day, my love still lives in her smile. Maybe that's what it means to grow old gracefully, to love without expecting, to give without needing thanks, and to find peace in simply being remembered kindly. So, if anyone ever asks me what happened the day My own children told me I wasn't needed anymore. I'll tell them this: that was the day I learned love doesn't always stay beside you. Sometimes it travels ahead, waiting for you in the hearts you helped shape. And that is enough for me. A mother's love doesn't fade when her children grow up. It doesn't stop when her hands grow tired or when her voice grows quiet. It lives on, in the way they speak kindly, in the way they care for others, in the memories that shaped them. Sometimes, love means letting go with grace, trusting that what you gave will keep guiding them, even from afar. So if you ever feel forgotten, remember, love never truly leaves a home. It changes rooms, it changes forms, but it's always there, softly waiting in the hearts you once held, because no matter how the years pass, a mother's love, your love, never ends.